Welcome, everyone. Today's webinar is going to begin shortly, but before we do get started this morning, I'd first like to introduce Tony. He's from Tilda Language Justice Cooperative, and he has some important information to share this morning on accessing simultaneous interpretation. Tony.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Gracias, Elizabeth. Buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is an announcement on accessing interpretation that will be bilingual. Eso es un anuncio bilingüe sobre cómo acceder a la interpretación. Este webinar va a ser en inglés y español, así que si uno no está completamente bilingüe en ambos idiomas, se le recomienda conectar con la interpretación. This will be a bilingual webinar in Spanish and English, and so if you are not fully bilingual in both languages, we recommend you join an interpretation channel. Como pueden ver aquí, hay un icono de globito terráqueo en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Haciendo clic en el globito van a ver las opciones sobre inglés o español y pueden hacer clic en el idioma para poder escuchar y participar en ese idioma. Si están conectando por teléfono inteligente, tableta, van a tener que hacer clic en los tres puntitos que dicen más, deslizar hacia abajo, seleccionar interpretación de idiomas, seleccionar su idioma y al final picar en finalizado para activar la función de interpretación. Next slide, please. To access the interpretation feature, you'll notice a globe icon on the bottom of your screen. You will click on that globe icon and choose the language that you would like to listen and speak in. If you're accessing via smartphone or tablet, you will want to click on the three dots that say more. You may have to scroll down to find language interpretation. Then you can choose your language, and in order for it to activate, you must click Done. Please remember to speak only one language at a time and speak at a moderate pace. Thank you very much. Favor de recordarse de hablar con un solo idioma a la vez y a un ritmo moderado. Muchas gracias.
Oops. Thank you so much, Tony. Appreciate that. Good morning. Welcome to today's webinar. We are going to be talking about empowering incarcerated workers through cooperatives. My name is Liz, and I've just got a few housekeeping items to go over before we get started this morning. And first off, a big thank you for joining us. We have just over an hour this morning together, and we have reserved about 15 minutes for audience Q&A. So definitely throughout today's webinar, we encourage you to ask questions. You can type your questions in the chat box. You're welcome to use the Q&A feature, however you feel comfortable communicating with our panelists. Our team is going to be monitoring that conversation, and we will do our best to get to as many of your questions as possible. This webinar is being recorded today, so you will have an opportunity to share it with your networks. And once again, just reiterating Tony's introduction, our webinar today will feature both Spanish and English speakers. So it's important to make sure that you select your preferred language by clicking on the globe icon in the Zoom window. And now I'd like to hand things over to our moderator for today's conversation, Jessica Gordon-Nemhart. Jessica is Professor of Community Justice and Social Economic Development in the Department of Africana Studies at John Jay College of Criminal Justice at the City University of New York. She is the author of Collective Courage, A History of African American Cooperative Economic Thought and Practice, and she's a 2016 inductee to the Cooperative Hall of Fame. Jessica is also a member of NCBA CLUSA's Cooperative Economics Council, and we are thrilled to have her here today guiding this discussion and informing it with her extensive research on incarcerated workers' co-ops. Welcome, Jessica. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much, Liz. Thanks, everybody. Thank the organizers for a great program. I'm very excited, especially for you all to hear and talk with three terrific experts that we've got. So you know that we're here really to learn about what's happening with co-ops of incarcerated workers across the world. And we've got three great examples to share with you. We want to talk about these as promising practices to really humanize the very dehumanizing experiences of incarceration. And we want to talk about, right, what are the lessons learned, what are the best practices in these fields so that we can figure out how to expand this strategy. I also do want to, I usually start out wherever I am, an acknowledgement of the original stewards of the land, as well as an acknowledgement of our ancestors and recognition of any elders in the room. So I'll just do that. And what we've got today is a quick video. Well, actually, first we have a guest speaker to welcome you. We've got a quick video presentation of the project in Peru. And then we've got a panel with 3 experts. And as Liz said, you'll have a chance to do some Q&A. So first, let me introduce Mark Giese from USAID Peru Deputy Director, and he's going to give us some opening remarks. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much. My name is Mark Giese, and I'm the Director of the Office of Alternative Development here at USAID Peru. I'd like to thank the Director of NCBA CLUSA's Cooperative Development Program, Ms. Camila Pinheiro, and as well as Engineer Carmen Rosa Chavez, with whom we have a long collaborative relationship from the time when she worked at the Ministry of Agrarian Development and Irrigation up until now in her new role as Director of NCBA CLUSA in Peru. For USAID, it's very important to strengthen the cooperative sector. In Peru, for example, according to the latest statistics, 70% of producers work independently without belonging to any group, association, or cooperative. This makes it difficult to standardize product quality or sell large quantities to meet market demands, and therefore to obtain good prices. For more than 20 years, USAID's Alternative Development Program has been supporting cooperatives, especially those associated with the cacao and coffee value chains in the Peruvian Amazon, in communities where illegal cocoa was previously grown. We work with the private sector and in close collaboration with DeVita, the government of Peru entity that coordinates Peru's counter-narcotics efforts and implements the government's anti-drug policy. We learned about NCBA CLUSA's project to support imprisoned women in Quillabamba, Cusco, while attending the International Specialty Coffee Fair, or FICAFE, in October 2021. And we found the project to be fascinating. In fact, we met some of the guards of the prison who were actually selling the women's products at the fair. These are women who have been imprisoned due to the crimes that they committed, but their mothers, who are they're mothers of families who surely for economic reasons took the wrong path and ended up in prison. And at this fair at FICAFE, we discovered this beautiful opportunity that NCBA CLUSA is offering these women, giving them the opportunity to redeem themselves vis-a-vis their families, their children, and their society, giving them the opportunity to become useful people, proud of their work and proud of their final product, Dulce Esperanza, or Sweet Hope Chocolate. This is a perfect name for a sweet project. We believe that these kinds of labor inclusion initiatives for people incarcerated, such as this one, should be replicated, so that by becoming cooperatives, these groups can formalize, become better organized and better equipped, and increase their capacities, and thereby increase their sales. A world of opportunities can open up in the future for them. We congratulate NCBA CLUSA for starting this initiative to help people in prison, and we hope that through this webinar, many people will be able to learn more about this project and others that NCBA CLUSA is implementing in several countries around the world. And I want to wish the NCBA CLUSA great success with these activities, and I thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So here we are, ready to get down to the nitty-gritty of what are these incarcerated worker cooperatives? What do they look like? How do they operate? We know that they're becoming more and more common throughout the world, not so much in the US, but we've got some great examples from around the world. What we're learning is first how these co-ops enable incarcerated people who usually have very little agency, and as I said, are in very dehumanizing experiences, to actually have some economic agency and practice economic democracy, even though they're in cages, even though most of their rights have been taken away. And so you'll see we've got some interesting examples for you. In Italy, which I think everyone agrees has kind of pioneered this model, there's currently about 2,000 people, or 12% of the incarcerated population, working for the prison administration and organized as cooperatives. The recidivism rate is only about 5%, which is so much less than the 70 to 90% in the other prison systems in Italy. And of course, around the world, we know recidivism is a huge problem, in addition to just conditions within the cages. We know that there are at least 4 incarcerated worker co-ops in Puerto Rico, which you're also going to learn about, and how interesting that model, right? So the Italian model is much more of a federal and state policies that have helped to create different kinds of social co-ops that have then been able to be used by incarcerated workers. In Puerto Rico, the incarcerated workers themselves demanded a model to do co-op development and to own their own cooperatives while still in prison, and have worked with the Puerto Rican Cooperative League. And so there's that model. And then we have the USA funded cooperative development program that is now working in Peru, as you heard, with the Peruvian National Penitentiary Institute, the Ministry of Production, and NCBA CLUSA. And so they're piloting a model where the Dulce Esperanza can produce chocolate as a cooperative. And so the first thing we're going to do is look at a video about that effort. And then I will introduce our 3 panelists, and we'll be talking about things like, what are the challenges that the co-ops face? How do we tackle those challenges? What can we learn from these models to use in other places and to strengthen these models, that kind of thing. And of course, don't forget, there's a Q&A place for you to ask your questions, and you can also put something in the chat if you need to, but I'll be looking mostly at the Q&A part. So first, let's show the video. My Spanish is really horrendous, so Dulce Esperanza. It's a little over 3-minute video, and then, as I said, I'll present the panelists after that.
Para nosotras es importante que nos escuchen. Nuestra presencia no suele estar aquí. Tenemos un emprendimiento al que llamamos Dulce Esperanza. Con mucho cuidado preparamos unos chocolates verdaderamente deliciosos. Si los productos tienen el valor de quienes los hacen, nuestros chocolates tienen un sabor que transforma el alma y vuelve las penas en esperanza. Somos aproximadamente 40 mujeres. Tenemos muchas cosas en común, como por ejemplo, siempre quisimos dar lo mejor a nuestros hijos, pero nos equivocamos, intentando ganar dinero fácil en el tráfico ilícito de drogas. Ahora somos internas en el Penal de Quillabamba y ahora estamos alejadas de nuestros hijos. Los tuvimos que dejar con parientes o en una casa hogar.
Estamos utilizando el chocolate como una herramienta de transformación. Ayudamos a las internas para que construyan un proyecto de vida. Esperamos que esta iniciativa sirva de inspiración y pueda ser replicada en otros penales.
Tenemos la esperanza de salir adelante con nuestro propio esfuerzo. Hace poco tiempo empezamos tostando en una fogata, pelando los granos con nuestras manos, y la única máquina era un molino prestado. Con esfuerzo y apoyo hemos logrado avances técnicos, organizativos y de equipamiento. Este taller nos ha permitido convertirnos en artesanas del chocolate y volcar todas nuestras energías en mejorar como personas.
Aún así, para nosotras es difícil sacar adelante una producción porque tenemos pocos clientes y muchas veces nos endeudamos para comprar los insumos. Trabajamos duro pensando en las necesidades de nuestros hijos. Cuando al fin tenemos el producto, debemos confiar en algún intermediario y muchas veces no nos pagan. Por eso, para poder vender, estamos intentando formar una cooperativa.
Las cooperativas son una alternativa para enfrentar problemas, aprovechar oportunidades y generar un progreso inclusivo. Todo problema puede superarse, pero con solidaridad y cooperación. Así nos lo demuestra el caso de chocolates Dulce Esperanza, que promueve NCBA y USAID. En esta experiencia estamos logrando que se sumen organizaciones y empresas. Nuestra meta anual es pasar de 1.200 barras a 7.000 barras vendidas. Sabemos que este camino recién empieza, pero nos emocionan los resultados que venimos logrando gracias a la solidaridad y cooperación que estamos encontrando.
Una cooperativa nos permitirá pasar más tiempo trabajando en nuestro taller para poder generar dinero y poderles mandar algo a nuestros hijitos. Y también poder continuar trabajando cuando alcancemos nuestra libertad. Cuando aceptan nuestro chocolate, aceptan nuestro arrepentimiento y nos brindan una segunda oportunidad para nuestras vidas y la de nuestros hijos.
Thanks for that. That gives you, a real feel for what we're talking about here. And NCBA CLUSA has written up a case study of this, and they'll be presenting the written version along with a copy of this webinar by next week. So now it's my pleasure to introduce to you three people who are on the front lines working on this. My very good colleague, who I don't get to see enough of, Valeria Pellerosi, from the I forgot to practice my pronunciations of the Conference Cooperative Federalista, which is the Italian Social Cooperative Federation. He's Senior Policy Advisor for Social Cooperatives and Social Enterprises. He's an expert specialist in social enterprises and social cooperatives, and helped to launch the Social Cooperatives International School, was a board member of Italy's Mayor Network for Social Companies. He's also sorry, I already said that he was a senior advisor. He's also a specialist in public policy in Italy. He, in 2018 and 2022, he was a member of the board of Gruppo Cooperativo, CGM, Italy's major network of social companies that gathers together about 900 social enterprises. He worked at the European level in Brussels, where he was co-author of the publication Cooperative Territories Jobs, 20 experiences of cooperatives active in industry and service areas in Europe. And at the Federation, he has contributed to several research and publications on social cooperatives and social enterprises. So we welcome him, and you'll see each panelist will be answering the questions in different orders. So let me introduce everybody, and then we'll go to the questions. Marie Nieves Plaza with Impulso Cero. She's a co-founder of Impulso Cero and a co-op developer. She's been a co-op educator for 19 years and focused her work on cooperatives in prisons, educating incarcerated workers on the co-op model, as well as on community services. In alliance with Puerto Rico's League of Cooperatives, La Liga, she has helped start several cooperatives in her country, receiving the Puerto Rican Cooperative Leader Medal for her performance and dedication twice, in 2009 and in 2015. She's helped to start several cooperatives, including Cooperativa Aragos, a multi-services co-op formed by inmates in Penitentiary Institute in Guayama, 945. She also has, as we said, founded Impulso Cero to continue to work on these issues as a life coach and to do cooperative education throughout Puerto Rico. And she's the former president of the Gender Committee of the Northern Council of Cooperatives of Puerto Rico in the League of Cooperatives. And last but not least, Dennis Calderon, who's the NCBA CLUSA Peru co-op law expert. As a consultant with NCBA CLUSA in Peru, he's developed training programs in formalization of cooperatives, has helped to formalize or convert several organizations into cooperatives, including the Dulce Esperanza cooperative. He's worked with NCBA CLUSA partner co-ops on legal aspects like co-ops, labor, contracting, human resources, and assets. He's contributed to the drafting of a proposal for the modernization of the Peruvian General Law of Cooperatives, the Emergency Decree number 075/2020, among other legislative norms. And so let's thank all our three panelists, and I'll start with our first question. In addition to providing incarcerated workers with income, which can generally be used by the family, and in addition to providing work skills, what other impacts have co-ops of incarcerated workers have on the co-op members, on their families, and on their communities? We're going to try to keep everybody to 3 minutes each, and we're going to start with Valerio.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you very much. I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me, but also it is a chance to be back again together, even if we are all in different countries, very, very far away from each other. I feel like being part of a team, and I really thank you for meet again. I thank the participants for the interest. I'll try to speak slowly and stay in the 3 minutes, which for an Italian is like something impossible. I'll go straight to the point. As Jessica mentioned, I'm working in a national association, a federation of social cooperatives. We have more than 6,000 members, and we can share the presentation. So I'll skip to the next slide, which is the focus that I have on social cooperatives working in prison, with prisoners, and beyond prisons. Because of course, social cooperatives in Italy have an important experience in developing work opportunities for incarcerated people. And today they employ the 60% of the total incarcerated workforce. So we are speaking about more than 1,500 people employed by social cooperatives inside prison all around Italy. But of course, they create as I say, they are something like opportunity hubs. They do something that goes beyond. I'm happy that it was mentioned that sometimes in prison we forgot to mention that there are mothers and fathers of families, and social cooperatives are also protagonists of assisting them to stay back in a safe relationship with their families and relatives. Of course, to face problems in being father or mother of someone, and of course of helping children of staying in a path of recovery. We must agree that we must humanize prisons. We must humanize the path that people that are in prison are taking. Social cooperatives, of course, next please. Next slide, please. Have an important role in providing work opportunities for inmates, for prisoners, and this means that they create jobs most of all, but they transform also the period in jail in something different. For example, to break the circle of crime, they organize a lot of trainings. Sometimes the period in prisons is a way to go back to school, to get a degree, to get something that is going to be really helpful in the life after the sentence. So that is really important. And I'm happy that it was mentioned before by Mr. Gizzi that there's the part of being part of an enterprise. So if you don't have this element in prisons, you fail. If you are in a method, in something that helps you in meet market demands, as he expressed, or for example, it's not banal to commit into an investment, as we saw in the video of Dulce Esperanza. So to share a debt with fellow cooperators, cooperative entrepreneurs, and invest in something which means future. It's a different future compared to the one that they were experiencing and their story that bring them to jail, to prisons. So that's for the first question, what it is important to remark. And social cooperatives is the way in Italy that they succeeded in this mission. Is a place, is a method where prisoners and other disadvantaged group of people find answers.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to unmute. Lee Marie is next.
Hola, muchas gracias por la invitación. Estamos complacidos de estar aquí con todos ustedes. Al igual que los compañeros, la visión acá en Puerto Rico ha sido una de transformación social. Desde el 2003, nosotros tenemos enmiendas en las leyes que permiten la creación de cooperativas en prisión, donde todos sus miembros son parte de la junta directiva, excluyendo a personas que no tengan que ver con la prisión. Así que es un gran proyecto que rompió, ¿verdad?, récord a nivel mundial. Y coincido con el compañero Valerio en lo que presenta de la transformación social que permite las cooperativas en las personas que están encarceladas, privadas de libertad física. En el caso de Puerto Rico, los ha empoderado, cambia su visión. Hambre de continuar estudios académicos, incluso universitarios. Eso antes no existía. Cambio de visión, porque en Puerto Rico, si estás en confinamiento, no tienes que pasar pensión a tus hijos. Pero como regla interna, ellos han enmendado su propio reglamento para que te hagas cargo de tus hijos desde la prisión en la cooperativa. Así que hay un cambio de perspectiva y responsabilidad con tu familia. Autoestima, donde tú sabes que puedes tener una nueva oportunidad desde adentro. Hay un cambio de la visión en la familia porque los ven trabajando desde adentro y con una nueva visión de sostener a la familia con lo poco o lo mucho adentro. Y han comenzado a construir con sus manos. En el caso de Puerto Rico, se han especializado en las artesanías. Hay un coffee shop y hay también, trabajan lo que es ropa y bisutería, las mujeres tainas pop. Así que tenemos una diversidad de personas que ha creado un impacto de cambio, sobre todo social y transformación interna, que así es como debe de comenzar el cambio desde adentro, donde tú mismo te pruebes para poder entonces luego impactar y poder marcar que hubo una transformación, que el ser humano se transforma. Y el resultado está en los jóvenes que han ido saliendo y no han reincidido. Así que esa es nuestra prueba para el gobierno local en Puerto Rico. Nuestro proyecto es transformador. La educación cooperativa provoca educación, capacitación, por ende hambre de aprender y cambiar la mente, salir con otro enfoque a la sociedad, donde sé que no me voy a sostener si no soy autogestor. Para mí ese es el mayor impacto de las cooperativas de trabajadores privados de libertad física.
Thank you so much, Marie. Such important perspective there, and to understand, right, this empowerment. Next, we'll hear from Denis. Are you still muted?
Hola.
Now we hear you. Thanks.
Hola.
Yes, now we
Muchas
hear
gracias.
you.
Saludar a todos los amigos que nos siguen a través de la plataforma virtual. Es muy importante conocer las experiencias de otros países como Italia y Puerto Rico, los colegas que me han precedido. Y el video nos ha mostrado todo. Básicamente, el trabajo que se viene realizando en el centro penitenciario de Quillabamba ha transformado las vidas de estas personas. Han iniciado básicamente 16 personas y ahora contamos con más de 30 personas participando en el trabajo conjunto para la elaboración del chocolate. Esto ha cambiado, puesto que a nivel interno, a nivel del centro penitenciario, con su norma cárceles productivas, va a lograr que estas internas cambien su visión a nivel productivo. Y cuando estas personas salgan del centro penitenciario, puedan reinsertarse nuevamente en la vida social. ¿Y cómo ha impactado esto en sus familias? Bueno, teniendo en cuenta, y básicamente lo que dice el video.
It's what they said in the video. They're going to be able to help their children and support them. However, the conditions inside the prison are still very limited to be able to produce enough to be able to help their families. And so their family members are helping them to sell their product. And this has helped to change the image of these women prisoners. Quillabamba is a very special region. It produces high quality cacao. It has a very fine aroma, and this has been beneficial. And the program in the prison has also been beneficial to the cacao producers also.
Denny, I'm so sorry, but you're not coming in loud enough. Can you get closer to your mic?
Ok, se me escuchó la última parte.
Much better.
Did you hear the
Thank
last
you.
bit of what I said?
Maybe maybe you should repeat the last things you said. Maybe the last sentence or two.
Perfecto. Entonces,
Sure. As I was mentioning, specifically, this has helped, and the families are helping out in collaborating with selling and marketing the products due to the limitations. But this also means that the families are able to help their family members who are locked up. And also the Quillabamba region has very fine cacao that's sold even in Europe and the US. And this project has also meant that more producers can sell to the prisoners, and it has led to them finding other markets for their cacao, even in Lima and other cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Denis. Thanks, Lee Marie, and thanks, Valerio, for that first set of questions. And hopefully our audience is seeing, the broad array of benefits, right? So not just allowing dignified work with decent salaries and things like that, but also the ability to support your families, right? To gain experience and to gain a whole different outlook, right? On life and relationships with other people, that kind of thing. So now let's broaden it and talk about some of the benefits of co-ops that, you know, bring us closer to society's goals of diminishing recidivism, preparing incarcerated people for their return. We touched on this a little bit, but now let me give you all a chance to talk about that in a little bit more detail. And this time we'll start with Lee Marie.
Sí, esta pregunta es muy
Yes,
relevante.
this question is very pertinent.
Pienso que uno de los beneficios más grandes
Well, we feel that one of the major benefits that co-ops, education, and training in the jails provides to society is to lower the recidivism rate, which in Puerto Rico is very high because these people are being trained. Once you finish your sentence in Puerto Rico, you have to still spend the following 5 years to prove to society that you have truly been rehabilitated. So it's very complicated. It's very hard to be released onto the street and get a job, because when you go to an interview, the first question is, have you been imprisoned or arrested? And you have to say yes. And even though discrimination is illegal, people are discriminated against. I've seen many cases. I've seen people who have university degrees and certificates, and they are not able to use them because of discrimination against people who have been incarcerated until they finally finish all their post-release requirements. And this leads to greater recidivism. And so these people who are working in these cooperative programs are able to become the leaders of their own businesses. And so what happens is they are released with a mentality that I have to work for myself and help myself, and they're more open-minded. And this helps to not trigger recidivism. And it also helps the community to understand how discriminatory the regular treatment of ex-prisoners is. And this is so important and has given us good results in Puerto Rico. And many people in Puerto Rico, writers, masters, electricians, etc., many of these people have learned through training, through a model that helps them to understand that we have to share and to help each other and teach each other. And that's what we want to do in the jails. And that's what I can tell you about the program in Puerto Rico. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lee Marie. I have to say that Lee Marie is probably the first and best teacher I had to explain this kind of transformation and what it really means in the lives of incarcerated workers. So thanks, Lee Marie. Denis, you're next.
Thank you. With regards to the work that the prison does with the prisoners is very important. With regards to the regulations that says that prisoners should be involved in productive work, a lot more people want to join the program. When they make their chocolate, they were also able to participate in national fairs and to exhibit their chocolate. And even though they were, and given that the prisoners were able to, through exhibitors, show the furniture that they made and the chocolate, and this all helped the prisoners to market their furniture, their mechanical work that they could provide, and their chocolate. This is a pilot program in the Quillabamba prison where men and women who are in the prison are able to participate. And this is much better than just sitting around not doing anything. In this program, the prisoners are involved in productive work. And when these people are released, they will be able to be engaged in productive work. The government has been assisting in the re-socialization through this program of the prisoners, not just in Quillabamba, which is one district in the department of Cusco. This has also been going on in other departments or provinces of Peru.
Thank you so much. And now we'll turn to Valerio. His organization probably has some of the best data to answer these questions. And so thanks again, Valerio, for being with us.
Yes, thanks, Jessica. But I'm really happy to listen to other countries' experience because also help us enlarge the view on the way we work, and also to have some aspect that we must work on. Of course, we have data on recidivism that ministry says are terrible. So every 10 persons that are committing crime that are in prisons, 8 out of 10 go after the sentence, go back committing crime. But if they're included in work, but not just in work, of course, as I said, if they get a degree, if they change the path, well, 5 out of 100 go back to crime. So it's from 80% to almost 5%. Here, I would like to let the experience talk. I'm showing, for example, Arcolaio. This is similar to what's happening in Dulce Esperanza. It is a bakery in Sicily. But it's not just the prisoner working there, but the message that they pass. This bakery is also created a marketplace, an online shop, where their products are sent all over the country. And everyone can feel the experience of doing this, but the workers at the same time feel to be part of something of our time, where everyone is talking about selling things online and purchasing things on Amazon. Their products are on an online shop. Next, please. The second case that I'm showing, it's from here, from Rome. It's a Men at Work. Actually, it's also the social cooperative of our national coordinator of the prison sector. They have a restaurant. They have a cooking center, and in the prison, they cook meals for fragile people that are distributed all over the city of Rome. They are employed by the local administration of Rome to cook, and they gain their salary cooking meals for elderly people that are fragile people that they cannot get food alone, and they are served by the social service of the local administration. This gives the meaning of helping someone staying in jail. And you see on the bottom left, the restaurant that they manage, the feeling of being part of something beautiful. It is in the city center, that is Piazza Venezia, the city center of Rome. Prisoners allowed to go out of jail for work. They go working in the city center. They are the cooks of a restaurant in the city center. Last, but I'm going really running out of time. Last slide, please. Here, alternative ambiente in the north of Italy. So I made one from the south, from Sicily, one from central Italia in Rome, and one from the north, alternative ambiente in Treviso, northeast. This is more an hub. So they run different services, and every service employ prisoners allowed to go out of jail to work, and also those in non-custodial sentence. They run waste management. They do organic farming. This gives you the element also of fight discrimination. You know that people staying in jail mainly are from suburbs, migrants, poor people, but you give them chances. You're not forcing them to stay in a selected path from the top, but you have different solutions, different ways of including someone to work. This is also something really important. Gives the person the feeling of, okay, I can follow my talent. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just one thing. I saw Elendera raise a question on the chat, but with the next question, I'm answering to that.
Right, I was about to say that also. We have a couple questions about challenges, and that's our third question. We had a fourth question about enabling environments, and we thought we would separate them. I guess we still have time to separate them. So let me have each person, starting with Denny, talk about challenges. It should answer some of the questions about challenges in the Q&A. If it doesn't, we'll get back to that. And then we'll do enabling legislation, and then there's a few specific questions I see in the Q&A that we'll get to in a minute. So thanks everyone for your great questions. And let's do some challenges right now, starting with Dennis.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. One challenge that we've noticed at NCBA CLUSA that's been helping us along the way is, how do we take the next step? And what do we mean when we say the next step? Well, how do we help the prisoners make it so that this productive workshop becomes a business activity on its own, using a business model or forming their own organization that can be a stable organization? If it's true, well, it's true that on the level of Peru, legislation in Peru doesn't allow us for a prisoner to make decisions because she's still, imprisoned. If that's not true, then we have to focus on solving that problem. We have to look other ways through family members or collaborators or colleagues, or have a supervising organization that's overlooking this business activity. So that's a significant challenge that we've looked at, and we're looking at that in coordination with our allies to be able to come up with a way to start a formal organization. Obviously, we're thinking about a cooperative. We have the case of Italy, we have the case in Puerto Rico, that those are sharing with us, and we agree with them as well. So then the first challenge for us is formalization of an organization through a cooperative. And that's a significant challenge, obviously. Then is to make that organization sustainable. And the question that we ask ourselves is, what happens if the prisoner, after being set free, will she continue in the cooperative or not? Or will she form her own organization with other people? So this is also questions we ask ourselves. Maybe we can close the cycle and then to be able to manage these concerns, of our organizations and be able to form a formalized cooperative, both within the prisons itself, with the prisoners themselves, because they're the ones doing the work, or maybe it has to be through family members that might collaborate with them to carry out the tasks that the women who are in prison are not able to do or allowed to do. So that's the first challenge. And the second challenge is to make that organization sustainable. Making it in terms of its financial planning, its organizational structure, and its success in sales. Those are the things we mean about sustainability. So looking as a next step after the first year or second year, we can look at how to make it sustainable. And so that those prisoners themselves can see that coming and walk alongside the project with the formal cooperative, not through a workshop that they have in the prison, but rather a solid organization, a cooperative organization that can act in the market like others do. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I think Lee Marie is next on this one.
Sí, esto es un tema como para 3 horas cada uno.
This is really something that we should each talk for 3 hours about. I think it's a really important question, but just to sum up, what we were able to do in 2003, which was an amendment to the law to allow self-managed co-ops in prisons in Puerto Rico, that became a challenge as well, because everything is going well as long as they're in prison. But once they get their freedom and join the community, there are rules that prohibit them from continuing to work in the way that Dennis is talking about. And so it kind of blew our minds a bit, but here we are. So if the laws can be changed for people within prisons, what's really the problem here? But we're not going to be stuck thinking about it as just a problem. We're thinking about a solution. We are working hard, hand in hand with cooperatives of people in prisons, and we continue in our legal struggles with the government. And so we managed to found the first mixed cooperative in community, because we don't want it to be, if you've already finished your sentence, so now you're a former convict, ex-convict. Okay, why am I still calling myself that? It's over. I'm a citizen. I'm back in society. I've completed my debt to society. I was socially isolated. And now I'm a citizen who's paid all of my contributions to society like anyone else. So why am I still carrying this burden as an ex-prisoner? And so we're working with the government. And the challenge that we have in Puerto Rico is the work that I do is voluntary work. We still don't have a coordinator, a director, a liaison, an alliance. We have to be voluntary intermediaries at this stage. And so the work that I'm doing, and then I'll do until the day I die, because I'm passionate about this. But what about the day that I'm not here anymore, or I can't do this anymore? This really worries me a lot, because there's so many people that love the project, teachers, lawyers, other brother and sister cooperativists who are following closely what's happening in our prisons, but we're not seeing that they're going to gain any economic benefit from being involved. There aren't a lot of people who want to do this without profit like we do in our organization. And so that's a challenge that we have. And then we've let the government know. Problem? Yes, but we're looking for a solution. I'm not going to stop here until I see change in my country. I feel that that's what has to be the case. I am a product of seeing what a cooperative project can do and how it can transform a human being. And I'm not going to stop until my country changes its laws. I will not tire until we see my country changing its retrograde mentality. And so if I'm not willing to sit down to just sit and look, I'm going to take action. And until, God willing, we're going to keep fighting alongside my husband, who's actually a product of a prison cooperative. And he's a great writer and speaker, and he works in social reintegration of prisoners. He's working in prisons to get those young men out and young women out to do quality things. What better experience than what I live every day to know that it gives cooperatives give education and training, and it gives a human being a desire to transform themselves. So it's a challenge, but you've always got to bring a solution. We're not going to sit here and cry. We cry a little bit, then we stand up, we dry our tears, and we keep fighting and doing what we have to do. So we'll continue to do that. Onward.
Thank you so much, Lee Marie. Valerio?
Thanks. Thanks. Well, I'll take the chance also to answer to the question that were raised from participants. I'm happy that we are in the same path here, and I'll try to get ideas from the past and to tell you about what's really helping the sector to move forward, and what's the main obstacle to really make the biggest step. So the two, let's say, this is something not mainstream yet. So we must be honest. Too many enterprises, even if you are speaking about sometimes 30 years of experience, are in a fragile position, almost early stage, because even here in Italy, we still are speaking about prison as not the perfect place where to set up a business. But from the most obvious things, let me share two examples with you. Imagine that you're today a cooperator in a prison, and you receive an incredible order, and you need to raise the level of your production, like let's say in 1 month, because you're a successful cooperator, your enterprise is successful. This is impossible in prison. Even if you explain to the prison administration, to the minister, that this means more work for incarcerated people, more opportunities, it is impossible. So we must agree that it's not a simple path, even if we share best practices. Of course, during time, we had, let's say, a widening consensus of things that we do in prisons are mainly good, okay? So when I say directors of the prison are really the key element, so they are those sometimes the main allies of social cooperatives in setting up the activity. And if they're crazy or visionary enough, they are the first understanding that they must make a change, and this also as a reflection in the life of the prison itself. But of course, let's say also we still have a lot of best practices, but we didn't scale up too much, so it's not something happening national level. There's not an agreement that we must set, for example, 1 or 2 or 3 enterprises in every prison. This is not possible at the moment. And why this is also something challenging. Sometimes someone asked, who chooses the business or the activity? Well, of course, prison as a place is more, and the way it is possible to run a business in a prison, of course, it orient the enterprise towards some sectors instead of another. For example, it's very difficult to manage customer care from inside a prison because, of course, it is mainly almost impossible to communicate with the external world. But for example, you have a lot of sometimes you have a lot of space to use, so that's why we have a lot of catering service. We have a lot of carpentry and the realization of furniture. That's why we have a lot of bakeries. So let's say that can be also an industry that we must scale up. And of course, we must also facilitate the bridge, the work that is made in accompanying the life of the prisoner from the inside to the outside. As Limari said, it is important that we create a bridge, but enable them to continue something that they started inside, but without the stigma they have of being incarcerated. Because if they change, they change. Otherwise, we are in a way helping them. In another, we are sending back them in the circle they are in.
Thanks so much. As Lee-Marie said, we could spend hours on this. I do think that we'll wait for question 4 and answer some of the Q&A, and then if we have time for question 4, otherwise question 4 could also be another whole nother webinar. But I did want to just add a little bit of what I've been learning about some of the challenges and how they've been handled. As Lee-Marie said, in their case, they had to actually change the law, and they were able to change the law so there could be self-managing worker co-ops among prisoners. There's still issues about who gets to handle the money, right, and how they do that. But I know Ethiopia has done some, at least in Mekelle prison, has done some interesting work with having microfinance program in the prison to work with the incarcerated people to get access to at least micro loans. Not the total solution, but another way to handle some of the financing and some of the money issues. I know there used to be a program in Canada called Inside Art, which had insider imprisoned workers, artists inside the prison, and then supporters and returning previously incarcerated people on the outside who were also members of the co-op. So the co-op was actually part insiders and part outsiders. So if you did get released, you were still a member of the co-op and just changed your physical place. And again, the Mekelle prison allows you to stay in your co-op even if you're released. So there's different solutions. That's part of why we wanted to do this, best practices and sharing of best practices. So different places could see how other places were doing some of this bridging, some of these solutions, some of the legal, some of the finance problems, that kind of thing. So we started to answer some of the questions. Let me see, I'm just going to look at all the challenge questions first. So that, right, the choosing of business often really depends on the country and the facility. And as Valerio said, who's the director in the specific facility. I remember Lee-Marie always said that too, right? And one of the challenges, but also one of the good things is if you educated the head of a facility, you know, then a lot more could happen. But then if they moved on or when the politics changed and somebody else gets appointed, you have to start over. So there's both good and bad there, but that influences a lot about what businesses get chosen. But again, the more self-managing co-ops do choose their own business or get help, right, from co-op societies about what kinds of businesses would work. There was another question, the role of former inmates in the cooperative. I think we went through that. Some places do allow them to remain with the co-op, and a lot of places are struggling with what can you do and how can the co-op world be more embracive of previously incarcerated people. In a minute, I'll see if the panelists want to answer any of those, but I'm trying to keep us moving a little bit. The role of the government in promoting co-op program. I think we sort of answered that. Again, it depends, right? It depends on the government. It depends on the pressure that's put on them, and then it depends on some of the individual facilities. Does anybody want to jump in on any of those? And then I'm going to go to a couple of the harder questions. We're good? Did I do a good enough job on answering those? Okay, so the template for setting up a co-op, again, it kind of depends on the country and the facility, but does anybody want to outline something, or that may be something we could send information about later? But a template that could be used for setting up co-op for incarcerated workers, including the structure of the co-op. Again, it really depends, right? Go ahead, Valerio.
Yes, this is something that we do in Italy, for example, for as an organization for supporting the new cooperatives setting up. So we have the statutes, regulations, and internal rules, and so on. So we support the creation of new cooperatives with that tools too. But of course, any toolkit must be set for the specific law of a certain country.
Great, thanks. Anybody else want to jump in on that? Okay. How about, we've got this question. Hi, Renee. Challenges in the US, right? Legal restrictions of incarcerated organized labor, the role of prison labor for the benefits the state. And actually we had that in the chat too, you know, the slave labor and the privatized labor in US prisons, right? So much of the labor is controlled by outside corporations or to benefit the state. So how, right, what type of partnerships or permissions are necessary in your countries? And are there any examples of incarcerated co-ops that did not have to coordinate with prison administration? Anybody want to take on that? Yes.
Acá en Puerto Rico, nosotros
Here
realmente
in
la
Puerto
iniciativa
Rica, the
nace de los mismos personas
initiative
privadas de libertad.
came directly from the inmates. The law was changed, and which was very quick and was hardly noticed because it was an amendment in a law. And it was an attempt to legislate prisoners. And we were very pleased. But as the prisoners knew that they could form co-ops, but according to the principles in the law, you have to work and be productive. But because originally, before the law was amended, prisoners were not allowed to be part of a co-op, and that's why the law got amended. And what Jessica Gordon has done in the United States is to try to present bills in different states to amend the laws, which has been difficult. It's a big challenge. There are some beautiful initiatives out there, though, but I think that in Puerto Rico, something that wasn't even hardly noticed is exactly what my vision was, because prisoners weren't able to do anything before, and now they said, okay, you want co-ops in prisons and you want to self-manage them, okay? And they were granted this privilege to have co-ops in the prisons. Yes, there are challenges with the administration. Every time the political party changes, we have to renegotiate, but there is a legal authority, because there's a document that was signed by the governor at the time. And we have law 229 in clause 14 that says you have to enable autonomy and independence of this illegally established program. But we're in a different worlds, and we always have to be knocking on the door and looking for somebody who has the mentality that is open to this. Peru has a great example. Argentina's another. There's other countries with great examples. We just have to keep insisting until somebody opens the door and gives you a chance, but it is definitely a challenge. If we go to a state, and it's kind of the same, but people say, you know, Puerto Rico is kind of part of the US. But we just say, we have no idea how this happened. oh my God, this was just like an oops that would benefited our country. And now there is no going back. So we can now form co-ops in prisons.
Go ahead, Valerio.
Yes, I told you before that, of course, we have challenges in staying for social cooperatives to work in prison. But let's say what in the past helped a lot. Of course, we had a memorandum of understanding with the prison administration and minister, helping directors in creating a connection with social cooperatives and to support them in the use of the space there is in prison to set up business. Of course, this is something that is an agreement between the prison and the enterprise and the social cooperative. Of course, they have to imagine the prison as a factory, as a place where you can produce something, you can sell something. After that, and maybe we don't have time to share the presentation, but it's you can share it with participants so they can read themselves. Of course, there is the power of good laws and good policies. So there is the commitment of funds in speeding up the creation of employment for incarcerated people. And in Italy, this is the scheme of tax relief, of tax credit for the creation of the single job place and for trainings with the objective of creating employment. And for incarcerated people employed, there is also the reduction of the cancellation of the payment of social security and the national insurance. So the wage is just the net, the enterprise that the social cooperative is paying for the work is the net wage. You don't have taxes on it. That's me answering to what's the enabling environment.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was going to say if we could, well, we're out of time now, but if we could get into that. So thanks for giving us a taste of what the enabling environment kinds of looks like and what the conversation could be. I think everybody gave us a little bit of that in terms of some of the legal stuff and some of the others. I hope that we'll do this again. It seems like there's more that we could all say and maybe even bring in some more examples. And so thank you all for being so interested in this topic, for your great questions. And please, let's give a round of applause to the panelists for such a fabulous job, for such great programming and analysis that they've been providing. Thank you so much. And I hope to meet again. And as you see, this is just the beginning of these kinds of conversations, or the middle, right? There's lots more that we can do and talk about. So thank you all. Have a great rest of the week.